Greetings. I am Dr. Corvis, and this is Miniature History Inns. Inns are one of the cornerstones of role-playing games. They are places to rest, gossip, and brawl, among other things. They are usually one of the first places a party seeks out upon entering a settlement, and we see them through the lens of the modern world, somewhere between a hotel and a tavern. While this is more or less correct, the medieval inn is more nuanced than you might imagine. So let's take a look at a medieval inn, and what laws and customs governed it, and discover if there are any elements of the past you'd like to incorporate into your own adventure. To begin with, the friendly innkeeper, such as Barlam Butterbur, proprietor of the Prancing Pony in The Lord of the Rings, would be a rarity. Inns are first and foremost businesses, built on necessity. The harsh practicalities of running an inn usually attracted tougher, more intimidating owners, ones naturally suspicious of guests who might not be able to pay their bills, wise to the many tricks that might be employed to deceive them, and strong enough to engage in physical confrontation. Innkeepers were considered legally liable for the behavior of their guests, giving them a strong incentive to enforce strict codes of conduct, and given that being on the streets after dark was a crime, few questioned them, and most feared to anger them. Not only could a guest be thrown out, but their possessions could be confiscated in order to satisfy unpaid debts, or cover the cost of damages. An experienced innkeeper would scrutinize a potential guest very carefully. Those who looked poor could expect curt directions to a monastery or church, where the impoverished were usually offered refuge, but, with enough overt signs of wealth, such as good clothing, a horse, or, better yet, servants, accommodations might be offered. A respectable inn would be of sturdy construction, with a heavy gate to separate it from the road. Beyond the gate, an open courtyard with entrances to the main hall, the stables, and the privies. Most lodgings to rent were found in separate wings of the often two-story structure, featuring external staircases and doors on both floors. Apart from servants and watchmen, guard dogs were common, as were terriers or cats to discourage rats. As for the rooms themselves, the best would be adjacent to the main hall, and the better the room, the fewer the guests. It wasn't uncommon for a single room in an inn to have a dozen or more beds, and each bed would be expected to accommodate 2, 3, or even 4 people. The cheapest rooms would only be accessible by exiting to the courtyard and climbing an external staircase, and would most likely be long, cramped halls with as many beds as would fit. The beds were wooden frames strung with rope, upon which a hemp or canvas mattress filled with straw was placed. With so many guests in close proximity, it was a rare night that passed without at least someone rising during the night to visit the privy, which often caused dogs to bark and boards to creak, not to mention the coughing, snoring, and shifting of the other guests. With potentially 30 or more people in a tightly packed room, a good night's sleep was a rare feat. And even for this level of luxury, inns were not cheap. The room was billed separately from the food and drink, which was illegal to provide to non-guests, and there were additional fees for caring for horses. What's more, in the medieval world, tips were expected. In the words of Chaucer, guests would not forget to tip the meanest page in the whole house, and gave their host and all servants in the place some gift that was appropriate to their standing. Who was likely to use an inn? In towns, the wealthy, yet rarely the extremely wealthy. Guests were usually those with financial means, but without an invitation to stay at the estate of an acquaintance, such as minor lords, merchants, and tradesmen. In more remote settings, inns were often bastions of security for travelers in the wilderness. Where bandits were feared, smaller parties would often wait at an inn for days while more and more groups arrived, until enough people built up to offer strength in numbers on the road. As for how to adapt these concepts to a role-playing setting, here are a few ideas. 1. Inns can be seen as a sort of haven for the wealthy. Every guest is guaranteed to have at least a certain amount of money, making them appealing targets for both merchants and thieves. Innkeepers might be open to making arrangements with interested parties, passing on information about guests, or even facilitating the theft of valuables, though the reputation of an inn is a precious resource, and one that a decent innkeeper will not easily sacrifice. The constant tension between profit and reputation could provide a number of plot hooks. 2. A full inn can be crowded in a way that the modern world rarely reflects. If the party is tasked with stealing from, abducting, or otherwise isolating a person who is currently holed up in an inn, they'll not only be faced with watchmen, guard dogs, and the constant activity of servants, but imagine trying to sneak into a room filled with 30 people sleeping fitfully on creaky floorboards, and finding that your target is wedged between 2 other people on an itchy mattress. Stealth could be extremely difficult. 3. Given the cost and the general lack of comfort, the inn could be seen as a necessary evil. One of the most important goals of a party arriving in a new settlement could be acquisition of decent living conditions. Each night spent in an inn could expose them to poor sleep, close proximity to diseased travelers, food poisoning, and even theft from unscrupulous guests, or worse, the innkeeper himself. Add in a legal requirement that being without proven accommodation guarantees a jail sentence, and it becomes plausible that a party arrives in town and chooses an inn only to be routinely exploited and threatened by a corrupt innkeeper until they can escape his clutches. For more fascinating historical facts about the medieval period, look for The Time Traveler's Guide to Medieval England by Ian Mortimer, which provided all the information here, as well as a great deal more that we'll explore in future episodes. Once again, I am Dr. Corvis, and thank you for joining me on Miniature History Inns, which I hope has given you a few ideas for your campaign. For more of my content, or to acquire my services as a voice actor, visit drcorvis.com.